is Deniss Martinez. I'm a third year in ecology at the University of California, Davis, and my work is with California Indian tribes on cultural fire management and trying to use that knowledge and that science to address the wildfire problem that currently exists in California. I think that we've all seen in the news how California has been experiencing some really tragic and difficult situations because of large wildfires. So we've seen Paradise and the Camp Fire, and these fires are actually not new. They've been happening all over California for a long time. They just haven't been impacting urban areas as much. And additionally to that, California is a fire-adapted landscape. So there's these two truths, wildfires are really difficult and tragic, but also California is a fire-adapted landscape. So these two truths are sometimes seem like contradictory, but when we look at Indigenous people and the knowledge and the science that they know in California, we know that California was always a socio-ecological human adapted system. So that's a lot of big words, but basically what that means is that California landscapes are always in relationship to Indigenous peoples, and Indigenous peoples knew how to steward and take care of the land, and fire was one of their most important tools. So what they did was they would burn down fuels so that these larger wildfires wouldn't happen. So what that means is that if you think about a campfire, you start out with, your small leaves, maybe paper, then you put on some kindling, and then you put on your big logs. So in a wildfire, what happens is that you start out with leaves, which are like your paper, then you start out with kindling, which is branches and other bushes, and then your logs are your big trees. So when you get ignition, the whole forest can go. Indigenous people knew that we shouldn't let those things accumulate. And so this knowledge and this science of how to clean up our forests so that they don't burn down is something that's really important to me. And so because I grew up around Indigenous people, I grew up around the Karuk tribe, I think it's really important to work with them and to learn from them how to address this huge problem in California. So the culture of health framework is really important in my research because it's holistic in a way that's really important to address these large environmental issues. So coming back to fire in Indigenous communities. So Indigenous people used fire as a tool to manage traditional foods, both plant life and wildlife, as well as water quality and availability. So those three things are really important for people's health. Traditional foods relate to ceremony, to art, practice, dance. They relate to kinship and mentorship among community members. It really is, land is at the core of the health of Indigenous communities, and being in relationship with the land is something that many see as a responsibility or as a part of their spirituality. So to say that fire ecology is related to health might seem like a big leap for someone that comes from a more Western science perspective, but from an Indigenous, California native perspective, folks know that fire is related very intimately to their health. I'm Indigenous I'm from Mexico, and coming to this Indigenous Karuk community, that was one of the first things that I learned from them, is how intricate the environment is and how weaved in humans really are. My hope is that my research uplifts the voices that have already been saying these things for centuries, honestly. Indigenous people have been advocating for their landscapes and their homelands, and I think that I see my research as a piece of that puzzle of helping and using my resources to connect Indigenous scientists and practitioners to policymakers so that policies about land management don't forget that we have hundreds of years of experience, knowledge, stories from Indigenous people in California that know that much knowledge, that we're not forgetting about it, that we're not leaving it out. And so I think that's where my piece is that I try to insert those folks and that knowledge into policy-making spaces. I think HPRS for me has been a great community of support. This community has given me access to scholars and mentors that believe in my work, that believe in my social justice vision, that believe in my interdisciplinary meshing of different concepts and theories that maybe haven't been put together before. I think that in many ways, HPRS has given me room to breathe and to feel that I can try really innovative, out-of-the-box things without worrying so much about what it would mean if I fail. And I think that that's been really powerful for me in my creativity and the way that I think about my research. And it's also given me the support system for understanding how to do those really difficult, innovative things that I would otherwise not have.